Hi, and welcome to another edition of The Grid. I'm Mike Foreman, a sports writer for The Advocate, joined as usual by Marcus Gutierrez, also a sports writer. And excuse this T-shirt he's wearing here. My son wanted to ask you, what was the score of the OU game, by the way?
I think OU won, but it was barely.
Okay, well, that's not why we're here, really. We're here to talk about some great high school football action coming up on Friday night. And let's take a little look back, anyways, at last Friday. Another version of the battle for the sword, East and West. And boy, this was dominated by West.
Yeah, a lot of history in this game. West put up 64 points, which is the most points scored in the rivalry game. East still has the advantage of 5-3, so the Titans can hang their hat on that. Also, it's the biggest margin of victory, 36 points of any team. So it was a historical night, and we got to see West finally maybe play the best game that they've played under Warriors head coach Courtney Boyce. They dominated from the start. It wasn't even close. It was done by halftime, and we got to see third string and fourth string players get in there. And it was very crucial for West. Now they have a better chance of making the playoffs with 2 games left. We'll talk about their game coming up. But great win for the Warriors, for West. They're still looking to win 2 straight. It's been a while since they've done that. But for East, very, very tough. Brandon Thompson goes out early in that second quarter. And when he was in there, he was dominant. I think their first 3 plays, he was there. It was about a 20-yard gain, a 17-yard gain, a 13-yard gain, and he was really moving the ball. Grant Baker was able to make some plays there, and the offense was moving fluently, and they tied the game at 7. But he went out that injury, and East did not look the same. This is the first time I got to see East. There's a lot of athletes on that team. I think it's just going to come down to execution and getting the plays right and stuff like that. But when you lose like that, it's tough to come back, and they've had a very tough season so far, and they're not out of it yet. I mean, every game from here on, they're gonna have to win out basically to make the playoffs. And we talked about those scenarios and the percentages, and it's pretty complicated. But if the East can just win, that'll help their chances.
Right. If the East can win out, it has a shot. But it's going to be tough. I mean, let's face it, they have Foster at home Friday. They have to beat Foster, and Foster and Angleton are unbeaten in district. So, but, that's the position they're in. What really has shocked me about that game, just watching, of course, I was in Bay City. What really shocked me was how quickly it got out of hand. That was the biggest surprise to me, to see that halftime score.
Yeah, and it was the West defense, 6 turnovers. I mean, the last year we knew that the West defense was there. I think against East we saw more players step up. We saw that secondary really shine with Bryce Sitka and Hagan McClarty. It was great to see those guys making plays, and they were after the ball constantly. Wherever Grant Baker was throwing it, they were right there on the receivers. I think 2 of the interceptions Baker threw, they were tipped, and the Warriors are right there. And the defense came through with the scoop 6, if you want to call it. It was just a dominant performance from West all over. It's the first time I've ever seen something like that from West, and it's going to be big heading into this week against Angleton.
Yeah, and now let's go back to the Foster game. As you know from when West played Foster, West was able to move the ball some against Foster. So if Tomlinson is okay, which we hope he is, and I think Ray seemed to indicate that he'd be okay. If Tomlinson's okay, they should be able to move the ball. But what it's going to come down to is what it always comes down to: can he stop anybody? And they haven't been able to do that. And Foster's going to be tough, and that's really East's only chance, is to get off the field on defense.
Yeah, I've seen Foster twice this year when they played West, and then when they played Calhoun. And when they played Calhoun, they didn't have their quarterback in there who played for West. They had their running back, Quentin Oliver, playing, which was really stunning to me. I don't know if there was a quarterback injury there or not, but Quentin Oliver, running back, was able to play quarterback, and he was pretty good. He made some deep throws, and he also ran the ball. And then when you talk about Foster, you talk about Alex Harris, the running back. They they have tons of running backs there. So East had trouble stopping Tyvon Hardrick last week. They're going to be tested again this week,
Yeah.
going against the Foster Falcons offense.
Right, and then of course West has to go to Angleton, which has been a very difficult task for everyone in this district. Of course, Angleton and Foster haven't played yet. Obviously, West, it's a challenge, but in the big scheme of things, this game really, I mean, even if West were to lose, which I know they want to win, their playoff hopes really would still rest with their game against Lamar Consolidated.
Yeah, that's true. And do you want to talk about Angleton, the
Yeah.
number 5 or 7, number 7 team in the AP poll? They've only allowed 14 points all year. They've beaten in district. Last week they took care of Marcus Holiday 70-0. That score sounds familiar, doesn't it? Because East lost 70-0, and they've been dominant. P.J. Foster, Tamir Williams, a great defense. Obviously, we can tell. We don't want to say West is going to lose or anything like that because it's Friday night. Anything can happen on a Friday night. And with Tyvon Hardrick, him running the ball, I'm pretty sure he's going to get a heavy dosage. And Keon Boyd, his athleticism is really going to shine in this game. So we'll see what happens on Friday. But like you said, they're more focused on Lamar for their playoffs.
I think that's really what you don't want to get someone hurt in this game that would affect you next week, because that really is what the playoff berth is going to come down to, is next week's game. So we'll look at that. While West travels up to Angleton, St. Joseph will be going up to Houston. Very tough task to play Second Baptist. Second Baptist, year after year, has a very good program. And the Flyers, unfortunately, have gotten off to a rough start. And they've got to figure out a way to win 2 games. And they have Second Baptist, Lutheran South, and St. John Paul the second in Corpus Christi coming up, and somehow they need to figure out a way to win 2 out of 3 of those games.
Yeah, all year, Coach Mike Hall is talking about Second Baptist is the best team in the district. So we're going to see what the Flyers can go against Second Baptist. I mean, he talks about them every week. Me and Ray hear it. So we're going to see what happens in that game. It's a game that they really need to win.
Right, and also on Friday night, the crazy district, District 12 4A Division 1, which is just wide open. El Campo is now the leader by a half game. Bay City's a half game back. El Campo has its bye week, so it can kind of sit back and see how other teams beat each other. While Bay City is going to have to go to Freeport to play Brazosport. And this is not the usual Brazosport team. This is a team loaded with athletes, and they have finally figured it out. That was kind of the impression that Brazosport always left, that if Brazosport could ever figure it out, they'd be dangerous, and boy, they have. And they gave El Campo a run for its money too. Bay City last week pulled a big overtime win, in that game against Needville. Dylan Davidson threw 6 touchdown passes in that game, and as a result, he won Ford Tough Player of the Week. So quite an honor there for Dylan, and really kind of a coming out party for him, that he showed as a junior what kind of potential he has. And I think people in Bay City have always kind of known it, but this was a chance for him to really show it on a big time stage in a game they had to win, and they did. And there's some other games Friday night that are probably will determine the district championship. One you'll be at will be Goliad and George West. Always an interesting matchup. The Tigers have, of course, they've run the table since they lost to Refugio. They had a big win last week over Mathis. This is an interesting game because George West head coach Brent Cornegay was the head coach at Yoakum when Bobby was an assistant there, the offensive coordinator. So these 2 guys know each other, so there won't be any secrets. It'll probably just come down to execution.
Yeah, and when you talk about Goliad, you start out with Logan Bland, running back. He's had a great year so far. Rough start the season, but he's coming on strong. And then you have to talk about Rocky Morris, and you talk about Dylan Davidson, that young junior Rocky Morris is doing great things. We saw that last year. Him in the playoffs making some huge plays, taking the Tigers on a deep playoff run. But I'm interested to see that defense,
Right.
led by Angel Hernandez, a very good linebacker. It's gonna be interesting to see how they do on defense. That's what I'm really looking forward to see.
Right, and the other game that probably will decide a district title is Cuero Sinton up in Gobbler Stadium. The Gobblers have won the last couple of games against Sinton after Sinton had beaten them 3 straight. This game is, ever since it's the 4th year now, they've been in the same district, and every year it has determined the district champion. Cuero's playing very well. They had that tight game against Sweeney. The good thing for Cuero is that Sinton still has to play Sweeney, which will be a tough test for Sinton. I think really here it'll come down to, as Coach Reeve said, Sinton runs a very fast-paced offense, so they've been practicing for that. The key against that kind of offense is that you have to do your assignment. If you get caught out of position, it's usually 6 points.
Yeah.
So that's the key for Cuero. I feel pretty confident that Cuero's going to be able to score against Sinton. It's just going to come down to how well they play defense against the Pirates.
Yeah, the Pirates have great athletes as well. I think about Gerald French. He's a defensive lineman, a tight end. When he gets penetration in the backfield, he's a problem. So the Gobblers are going to have to worry about him on the defense side of the ball. Then they have great wide receivers. So the Gobblers are going to have a test come Friday night.
Right, and of course, in our 3A district there with Yoakum and Edna and everyone, Yoakum will be playing Van Vleck, who we know is a very talented team and is capable of doing a lot of things. The other interesting matchup is, of course, the big Jackson County rivalry between Industrial and Edna. And, that's one of those grudge matches kind of games. So those are always interesting as well. And I did want to mention, too, that Refugio plays Kennedy this week. But the thing about this game that's interesting, this will be Refugio's first home game since Hurricane Harvey. It'll be homecoming for the Bobcats. I think it'll be a really good thing for the community to have a chance to get out, watch a football game. That's something, they've had to travel all season long. And this will be a chance for the Bobcats maybe to celebrate. There's still a long ways to go till things are back to normal, if they ever will be. But this at least will give people a chance to kind of enjoy a Friday night after all they've been through.
Yeah, last week I drove through Refugio, and it didn't look like the Refugio that I've driven through before. So that football is very supportive of its football, and it's gonna be great for one night that everyone's gonna be at the stadium, and they're gonna have a great chance of winning. Kennedy is a very young team. We know about Dedrick Wilson. He's a very tremendous athlete, but I believe that those Bobcats, they've been wanting to play on that football field all year.
Yeah.
They get their chance, and they're going to make it count.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. And of course, the reason we're doing this here on a Wednesday is because we have a couple of Thursday games. First of all, Calhoun Sand Crabs, they have to go to Rosenberg to play Terry, and this is a very important game for Calhoun. It really needs to win this to kind of keep its playoff hopes alive.
Yeah, we're talking about East and West, but Calhoun's in that district, and the Calhoun West game, if you look back at it, it was very important.
Right.
And Calhoun came up short. Maybe a couple of fumbles don't go their way.
Right.
They win that game.
Right.
But now they put pressure on themselves where they have to beat Terry and they have to beat East at the end of the year. But I think that Sand Crab option offense, it's been moving down the field. It moved against Foster. If they don't fumble it 4 or 5 times, they're in that game. So it's going to come down to that holding on to the ball. Coach Whitaker is a very passionate coach. He's disciplined. He's one of the best coaches in the area, in my opinion. He really gets that team going. And those kids, every time we do an interview with those kids, they talk about how much respect they have for Coach Whitaker, and that goes a long way. So this is a must-win for them to keep their playoff hopes alive.
They really do. And, of course, the other game on Thursday, which you'll be at, will be the annual battle of the Lavaca County private schools, Shiner St. Paul and Hallettsville Sacred Heart. St. Paul, as we all know, is the 2-time defending state champion. They're undefeated this year. Sacred Heart is under a new head coach, Brad Wright, a longtime head coach. He's been around. He's He's coached at El Campo, at Wharton, at East Bernard. He was even the head coach at Texas State for a while. So Brad has a lot of experience. He's putting in a new system, so I'm sure it takes a while to adjust to that. But St. Paul has looked good. Of course, Connor Crestra is just run for a lot of yards in almost every game.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see that. It'll be my second TAPS game of the year, which we always like to go out and see our TAPS goals. I'm interested to see Cresta. I've talked to him briefly, but I never got to see him play. But it's gonna be interesting to see the defending state champ, two-time state champs play on Thursday.
Right, and of course St. Paul right now is in good shape to repeat as district champions, and as I believe has won the last 4 games against Sacred Heart. And believe me, that matters because this is kind of like Texas OU we talked about.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like you wouldn't be satisfied winning 1 game a year, but if you have to pick 1 game to win, this is the game you want to win. So we're going to have a full slate. We'll have 2 games Thursday, and then Friday we're already in week 9. So 2 more weeks of the regular season, and then the playoffs will start. And so make sure to follow us in the Cover It Live. Follow us all on Twitter. We'll have all the updates from all the scores. And then again, of course, we'll be back again next week with the grid.